Now you want to talk about OJ.
I want to talk about OJ. I mean, what can we say? OJ passed away. Um, but we spoke. You and I spoke about how, you know, the culmination of what I just showed in the video with George Bush was, that kind of 4-year window, 1990, 91 until 94, was when it almost seemed like, if you ever watch movies where, like, you know, you kind of see the, let's say, the main protagonist, he has a older, this kind of elder mentor, and then, obviously you have the villains, right? And then you see this kind of progression of how, the villains are plotting whatever they're plotting, and then the elder mentor passes away, right? And then that's when things kind of go south. The elder mentor, whoever, passes away, and then the protagonist is left by himself to deal with, the evil, um, where he thought the forces of good had won. This is just like this is the next stage. This is the next, and maybe hopefully final stage. So that's kind of where we are there. And there was this kind of like 4-year period, and then, basically what we saw was, for those of us who were alive at the time, 1994, the summer, the Lubavitcher Rebbe passed away, June. And then I remember this vividly, watching, ironically, the euphoria of both the New York Rangers and the New York Knicks. The Rangers winning the Stanley Cup, the Knicks being in the finals, and then you're watching the New York Knicks in the finals, Game 7, and then they cut away. And they lost, by the way. The Rangers won, but then the Knicks lost, and they cut away to what? The car chase, the OJ car chase. And then that trial, if anybody remembers, who was OJ's best friend? Kim Kardashian's dad. Ironically, somebody posted a meme. I sent it to our friend Eric, because our friend Eric is a fan of the Buffalo Bills. OJ Simpson played for the Buffalo Bills. So he said, OJ Simpson played for the Bills. That's actually where he met Robert Kardashian. So they said, thank you very much, Buffalo Bills. If he never knew, he never would have met Robert Kardashian. He never would have met Nicole. That's where he met Nicole. The woman, his wife, who he killed in Buffalo.
He beheaded her.
Yeah,
he cut her head off.
And and from that point forth, that's when popular culture deteriorated. We saw the very public trial of OJ. We saw this miscarriage of justice, even though a lot of people thought it was a rectification for all the black men who were wrongfully convicted over the course of American history. So, like, they were showing split screens during the verdict, of like bars, those like African Americans and
complete fools.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, and so Robert Kardashian was his best friend. He reactivated his legal license, even though he was not one of the lawyers. Actually, Dershowitz was one of OJ's lawyers, and Robert Shapiro, founder of LegalZoom. What's his name? Johnny Cochran. If it doesn't fit, you must have quit. Like, that's when like lawyers were able to, like, literally finagle their way into, like, getting their clients who clearly committed crimes either completely off or reduced sentences. That's when lawyers got it into their heads. Wow, like, I can literally just, like, use the system, especially if the person's a celebrity, to just get, I don't know, if the celebrity does something horrible, at worst they'll get, like, community service. That's when the whole community service justice system started. OJ's trial. It really ramped up from there. And that's when we got what? We got reality television. I mean, reality television came a couple years before that, but that's when really reality TV became like a thing, when pop culture became a thing, when what you're talking about, when you got back from Israel, whatever the hell that was, became a thing. Just like degenerate celebrity worship culture, fake reality shows, just like crappy music. Just they took the Shekhinah out of everything. Literally everything. The only place, I'll be honest with you, man. The only places I saw the Shekhinah, so to speak, was if you were like in the underground, like the scene that you and I were in, the underground music, house music scene. You kind of saw that. That was our own kind of thing. But in popular culture, completely gone. In movies, gone for the most part. Yeah, it was gone.
OJ was a symbol for the downfall of America and Western civilization in general. He was the rich. It was a televised ritual marking the downfall of Western civilization, because the whole story itself was so filthy and so disgusting. There was just so much evil having to do with OJ, what he did, and everybody, all his friends, and all these people who surround him, right? Which it was a Gnostic sacrifice, by the way. That was a ritualistic Gnostic sacrifice. Okay, he beheaded her. Okay, I know guys who wanted to kill their ex-wives because they were sucking them dry of alimony. They were going to use a gun. Okay, he beheaded her and some guy that she was with. Okay, a Jewish guy, who whose family never got any justice, as far as I know.
Dude, you know the crazy? I gotta say one thing. Like at the end of the if you watch the closing statement, Johnny Cochran, when he or it was before the closing statement, when he the evidence, so to speak, they found the glove, OJ's glove. So what do? I mean, it's just so obvious. So it's like science. A glove that has blood on it is gonna shrink. Gonna make the glove shrink, right? Then what do they do on top of that? So OJ can't just put the glove on because it's evidence, right? So they have him put a surgical glove on, a very thick one, and then the glove, and then he's like, "Oh, you see?" He goes like, "I could show folks at home. I just want to show this. This is so
if
ridiculous.
The glove don't fit, you must acquit.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit." But like, look at this. This is like everybody here. It's just like everybody's watching this, and we're like,
they made a mockery. Yeah. A mockery, folks. Ever heard this expression? They made a mockery of it.
Look at this. Look at, and he's an actor, of course.
All right. Is there anything further from the people?
At this time, subject to the receipt of the people's exhibits into evidence, the people rest.
It's still OJ Simpson.
Wait, hold on. I don't know why. I want him here. Just like he's got two gloves on, surgical, and then he's like trying to fit it. He's like,
We ask him to straighten his fingers and extend them.
He should have just put like 5 gloves on, just to make him more of a mockery.
All right, he appears to have pulled the gloves on, counsel.
Marshall Clark is like, seriously? Like, honestly?
Show that to the room or something in that manner. Thank you.
She's like, she can't believe it. She's like out of her mind.
He is doing both.
Unbelievable.
We ask him to grasp an object.
He's like, they don't fit. They don't fit.
All right, Mr. Simpson.
Dude, can I tell you something? I had a friend ask me, what was the big deal about this trial? Because I was 13 years old. I think he was like 9. He was a kid when this happened. I said to him, the big deal was that this guy, OJ Simpson, he managed. Here's the irony of the whole thing. He managed to insert himself into, you want to call white society, so to speak. And he managed to make a lot of people forget what his color was. Right? He was in what was the movie's Naked Gun?
Yeah.
He played it. I remember when I was a kid, I saw the movie Naked Gun. You know what the name of his character was?
Nordberg.
Yeah. Have you ever met a black guy named Norberg? Seriously, just I haven't. Okay, so and he was in these Hertz commercials. Like Hertz, not exactly. He's like, he's running to the thing because he's a running back. He's running to the car and he's trying to make the. He's like, oh, your car's on time. You don't have to run, whatever. And like he endeared himself to the American public. But then like when this happened, they made it out to be like, oh, he's back to being a black guy. Nobody cared. Nobody cared as a black. And then Johnny Cochran turned into this whole thing. And the thing is, the prosecutors, Marsha Clark, you saw the lady Marsha Clark, but her partner, this guy, Darden. He was a prosecutor. So they turned him. They turned OJ back into a black guy, and they turned him into an Uncle Tom because he's a prosecutor and he's black. Like the whole thing just flipped on its head. It's astounding what they did.
Can I just wanted to point out a couple of things that some people might forget if you were there. I was 14. We were 14.
Yeah. I was 13 years old.
Yeah. And others who were not there yet, they don't understand. Yeah. You mentioned it already. You were watching the Knicks when it cut to the police chase.
I was very pissed off. I'm like, I don't want to watch this crap. I know you. Like, what's the point?
Folks, let me ask you a question. It's a big country, and somewhere right now, it's likely that there are a couple of police chases going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So the fact, it wasn't like something, it wasn't kind of some kind of national security thing. It wasn't like OJ had like, an EMP bomb like in the back of his Bronco.
Sure.
Right? Or he wasn't like, running away with somebody's like heart that was in mid transport to the hospital for a transplant.
Yeah.
It was just a dude running away from the cops.
Yeah.
They shut the world down to show us.
They decided that it's must-see TV.
This was a ritual. Do you understand? It was an inauguration.
Yeah.
Of the new world order.
Yeah.
That was what Bush was talking about. That was really the beginning where
that was one of them.
Where the whole world was going to be covered with a layer of slime.
Yeah.
The world was cleaner. It was better. It really was. Before they slimed us with this whole OJ ceremony. Okay? Where they literally stuffed it in your face. They're like, here is a mockery of justice, obvious mockery of justice, right in your face.
I was thinking, wow, they won't even let me watch John Starks go 0-for-17, will they? They won't even let me do that. At least they let me watch the Rangers win the cup, but they won't even let me watch the Knicks lose. I have to watch this freaking Bronco being chased by cops. And you notice, by the way, in most chases, you ever see these chases on like these shows? The car, the guy's, he's being chased, and usually the car is going like, it's like Formula One, and then the cop cars purposely speed up to knock him off the road. What was this chase? It was just all these cars going pace behind the car. The truck didn't speed up. Al Cowlings, he was driving the truck. He didn't speed up. And the cops didn't speed up either. They didn't speed up to cut him off. It got to a point where he just ran out of gas. I'm thinking to myself, why don't they just run him off the road? I guarantee you, somebody from the booth, they're like, no, milk this for as long as possible. Just wait until he runs, gets out of gas, and then we'll take him, and then after that we'll make a whole circus out of this whole freaking thing. We'll get an Asian, Japanese American judge. We'll get some interesting jurors. We'll get like an all-star cast of lawyers. You know, what's his name? F. Lee Bailey was also one of the lawyers. Dershowitz, F. Lee Bailey, Robert Shapiro, Johnny Cochran, some other guy. They had this other guy, Jewish guy. I forgot his name.
Not Jewish. Not Jewish. These guys aren't Jewish.
Yeah. Dershowitz. Now Dershowitz is threatening to quit the Democratic Party over this behavior.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to save the country. Alan.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Folks, in order to like kind of reinforce our point here, okay, that OJ was a Gnostic. It was a massive pagan Gnostic ritual. And again, for those who are just joining us for the first time, Gnostic means anti-Hebrew scripture. God's will as laid out in the Hebrew scripture. Gnostic are people who fight, who do the absolute opposite of it. Okay. So,
folks, after this whole thing, I just want to add one thing regarding Kardashian. I just remember like being in college, right, and the whole thing with Paris. Paris Hilton came out and the show, and then her friend, Kardashian was her friend. I remember asking my friends, and they used to watch that. I have friends that watch the reality show, and I'm like, what are these people famous for? They're famous for being famous. I have friends like, dude, why are you hating? They're like good business people. I'm like, dude, are you on crack?
It's not clear. Like I could not, when I came back from Israel, I couldn't understand why people were watching these people. I could not.
They still watch it. Keeping up with the Kardashians. Keeping up with what?
That's something
I don't.
Dude. I think we figure out a lot of stuff. I just can't understand how people. I still can't figure out how people could be entertained by that.
Yeah.
It's not an insult. I'm literally at a loss. But to this OJ thing, and I consider the fact that he died as a good sign. By the way, it's a good sign because this aberration.
Yeah.
He's a symbol of the downfall of man, right? And for the following reasons.
Yeah.
I'm just going to read something, okay?
Sure.
So there are Torah verses, okay, 5 books of Moses, where God makes statements about judges, appointing judges, and law enforcement. Okay, and I'm gonna read some of them. Okay, this is the Torah tradition, but these are verses that, if you're Christian, you've read these verses too, or depending on the translation, but I'm sure it's the same. Okay, so it says the Torah teaches how important it is to ensure that there is no possibility of bias in our judicial system, because it says in the text, God commands us. You shall, quote, you shall not render an unfair decision. Do not favor the poor or show deference to the rich. Judge your kinsman fairly. That's Leviticus, in Hebrew, Vayikra. The book of Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 15. I'll read that again. You shall not render an unfair decision. Don't favor the poor because they're poor. And don't favor the rich because they're rich. Okay? Judge your people fairly, your kinsmen fairly. Okay? You have to be impartial. Okay? You can't let OJ off the hook because there was so many innocent black men that went to jail. That's not going to help. That doesn't make up for the sin of sending innocent black guys to jail.
Yeah.
Okay, this further just destroys. So that innocent black guys being sent to prison by unfair courts and corrupt judges, right, is bad.
Yeah.
Letting somebody get away for murder is bad. You're not improving the situation for black guys. Okay?
Yeah.
Unless you're using this to completely dissolve any accountability for crime.
Yeah.
Which is what this was probably the main first step in what we're seeing today.
Dude, you know what they also did in that trial? they put this guy on the stand, the detective Furman, Mark Furman, and they played some audios of him, doing some racist rants or whatever it is. They literally tried to say that because he's a racist, there's no possible way that he could have handled the evidence or, handled the case like correctly.
In other words,
Even though he had a stellar record as a
in
cop.
other words, because one of the guys who was supposedly part of the investigation was racist, unless he was, I have a feeling he was part of the whole clown show. Like, he played a role in it, right? So because that guy was racist and because of all the bad stuff and unjust things that happened to black guys in the past, we're going to let OJ kill a white bitch and that Jew that was banging her.
Yeah.
That's the communication. That is what they did. That's the message that they sent. And whilst doing that, we're going to completely destroy and make a mockery, pervert all justice, for which, folks.
Here, look. Can I show you? Here, look at this.
If there's ever a stable society, right? Yeah. That's because God allows whatever stability there is. God permits that.
Yeah.
But it's based on something. God continues stability as long as there is some integrity in the society in terms of law enforcement and proper behavior. Okay? And this applies to everyone in the world. Okay? So if you could hold on, Greg, I just wanted to read a few other verses. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
So the Torah, so I was reading that Leviticus chapter 19, verse 15. You shall not render an unfair decision. Don't favor the poor or show deference to the rich. I mean, don't favor the rich and judge your kinsman fairly. Don't be affected by the person that you're judging. Just look at the facts and treat everybody the same, because everybody is the same. Because the judge is representing God. God's will. He's administering God's will based on the Torah. Okay, so that's a very, very important. Like, the stability of the world relies on it. One of the reasons that God sent the flood and destroyed the whole world was because of this kind of injustice. Okay, so the Torah commands us to appoint judges who will, quote, judge the people with a just law. Just means God's law, by the way. It doesn't mean legal. We don't have a justice system, folks. We have a legal system. Legal is determined by man. Justice is determined by God. Okay? So the Torah commands us to appoint, Rabbi Kessin recently pointed that out, emphasized that. The Torah commands us to appoint judges who will judge the people with a just law, and tells us that those judges should, quote, not pervert the law and show any partiality. That's from Deuteronomy chapter 16, verses 18 through 19. In fact, this is the context in which the famous commandment, quote, justice shall you pursue, Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 20. Okay? To put it simply, the work of pursuing justice hinges on having a fair and independent judiciary. Our tradition has long been, this is the Jewish tradition, has long been clear about the problems of packing a judiciary with judges beholden to special interests or a particular political party. As Rabbi Shlomo Ephraim ben Aaron Lunchitz from the 17th century, he's a Torah commentator, also known as the Kli Yakar, right? He put it, quote, judges should not show favoritism even to those who appointed them. Judges should not judge all the people. Judges should judge all the people justly, okay? Which he's quoting Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 18. And says the Talmud, volume of the Talmud called Avodah Zarah, on page 52a, asserts that appointing a judge who is biased or ill-prepared for the role is considered so bad that is considered akin to one of the greatest sins that our tradition describes. Okay? It teaches in the name of the sage Reish Lakish. He was a rabbi from the Talmud, from Talmudic times, mentioned in the Talmud. Quote, Reish Lakish says, quote, anyone who appoints a judge who is unfit for the position due to his lack of knowledge or wickedness is considered as though he plants idolatry among the people of Israel. Okay, it's an earthquake causing sin. It is a world destroying sin to have unjust judges. Okay, what's happening today with Trump is one of the most horrifying omens of the destruction of our world. It's a system that we live in. God will destroy the world if we allow this to continue. Okay, or He will just finally have mercy on us and send Moshiach and just redeem the world, because either the world will be destroyed or it has to be redeemed. And thank God that God promised to redeem the world. Okay, so Jewish tradition has long affirmed the critical importance of having ethical, unbiased judges. For example, one midrash asserts, and we're gonna explain midrash later. I found an essay that explains it because we keep mentioning it. Okay, and people need to understand what midrash means. Okay, so we have a midrash in our tradition, right, that asserts, quote, judges need to be people of strength through good deeds, and they need to be clean of any infraction, so that no one could make any claim of bias against them. That's Midrash Tanhuma, section Shoftim, Judges, chapter 3, verse 1. Okay, so the obligation to ensure and protect a fair and independent judiciary is on all of us. Okay, Rabbi Chaim ben Moshe ibn Attah, an important 18th century Moroccan leader, rabbi, and he has a commentary on Hebrew scripture, Or HaChaim, where he says the commandment to not pervert justice, as it says in Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 9, is not only addressed to the judges, but to all those who, by failing to appoint the proper judiciary, contribute to unfair judgments being handed down by unauthorized sources. So that was his commentary on Deuteronomy 16, verse 9. Okay, so anyway, it goes on, but just the last statement here is Jewish tradition is clear that everyone deserves equal treatment under the law. As the Torah teaches, quote, you shall have one standard of law for non-citizen and citizen alike. Leviticus chapter 24, verse 22. Again, quote, you shall have one standard of law for, translated as non-citizen and citizen alike, but that's not really what it means. Non-citizen in Hebrew, see, this is a problem in translations. Hebrew, it says ger toshav, which means a resident, a foreign resident.
Yeah.
He's not an illegal immigrant. He's a person who is permitted by the authorities, by local authorities, to live in Israel. Okay, he's not just somebody who wandered in and is a squatter. Okay, so again, you shall have one standard of law for foreign resident and citizen alike. Okay, that's Leviticus chapter 24, verse 22. Okay? Rabbi Bachya ben Asher ibn Halawa, an important 13th century Torah scholar, he explains this verse. He says that the Torah wanted to make the point that in spite of differences in origin of certain people, the law is to be applied to them equally. Okay. By the way, just to go back to that verse in Leviticus 24, chapter 24, verse 22, where it says, "You shall have one standard of law for foreign resident and citizen." Foreign resident means non-Jew. That's the Torah word for non-Jew. It's not goy. And citizen means Jew, Israelite.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in other words, the Torah wanted to make the point that in spite of differences of origin of certain people, Jew and non-Jew, the law is to be applied to them equally. Thus, a fair and impartial court is essential. That's Rabbeinu Bachya in the 13th century on Leviticus 24, chapter 24, verse 22. Okay, so it's a big deal. OJ as a symbol, as a destruction of justice, is a big deal. It doesn't matter what justification you're trying to make, right? Where you're trying to rectify sins of the past by doing something even more horrible. You're destroying the system of justice. You're not rectifying it. Black people need a good system of justice like everybody else. All they need to do, the only way to fix what happened in the past is to have a more just justice system. To make it more just. You can't fix the sins of the past by destroying it even further, which causes harm to everybody, by the way. It causes the decline of morality in general. It encourages criminal behavior to those who are already susceptible to it because of the environment that they live in and because of the stupid culture that they're from. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's a big deal. So with this motherfucker dead, I'm hoping that it's a sign of that, that the era of the slime, the grease
It's coming to an end.
we were covered with when the OJ thing happened, when the world was messed up, right, is going to be lifted. You know, we're going to be exfoliated from the slime and the oil and the grease that was just covered the entire face of the world.